We're so excited to have everybody here. I'm definitely the most unqualified person up here to talk about this subject, but I will do my best. I work for Millennial Branding. My name is Tim Hare. I'm going to be the moderator. I'm the events director, so this was partially my idea. So thank you. You make me look really, really good right now. In front of my boss, our CEO, Mr. Dan Chaubel, who's going to talk to you guys for a couple minutes, and then we're going to get started.
Thanks, Tim.
You can clap. It's okay.
Can everyone hear me in the back? Put your hands. Thanks everyone for coming. We've been working this event for, I think, 4 months at this point. So this is a big summer event. Hard to get people out for the July timeframe, but I'm really happy to be here. And we're going to talk all about social media, the new wave of digital media, from Square to Foursquare to everything in between. So it's really exciting. I remember when I was first starting off in the social media world, Larry had his book out, Marketing the Social Web, and I heard him speak, and now he's speaking at this event, so it's really, really exciting. We're happy to have him here and the rest of the panelists. This event is sponsored by Domain.me, and you can pick up your own .me domain name on GoDaddy or another hosting service. We also have sponsored and partnered with Brand Networks, and you get your picture taken in the back, or after. We're doing a book signing for Larry Weber's book, Everywhere, and you're going to be able to get your picture taken in this area with Larry himself. So we're really excited. If you want to sponsor a future event, there's Bill Connolly. You can talk to him. He's pretty tall, so you'll be able to spot him. And without further ado, we're going to get started right now and enjoy the next hour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So like Dan said, we have a very illustrious panel who I'd like to introduce briefly. Larry Weber, who's the author of Everywhere, Comprehensive Digital Business Strategy for the Social Media Era, which he was kind enough to donate to everyone who bought a ticket, so you can thank him for the free book. He's also the chairman of W2 Group, Mr. Larry Weber.
Hi everybody, it's nice to be here. Also think about questions for later. We do have a question period after you.
Yeah, there's a few questions.
Kind of thing. I'm lucky enough, even though I hopefully don't look that old, I can answer questions about what I call the fourth wave of computing, which is happening right now. And also, I'm not Al Gore, but we did do all the PR for Tim Berners-Lee. Now, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, when he launched HTML in 1993. So anything about the future of the web, and also social media, which we won't call social in a few years. So look forward to answering those questions.
Next, we have Perry Hewitt, who's the Chief Digital Officer at Harvard University.
Hi, I'm with Harvard University now, working as their first Chief Digital Officer, helping them think about digital and social strategies and how that applies to schools and audiences in this changing world where we have everyone from 17-year-old incoming students to, I think our oldest alum at reunion this year was 102, and how does social impact that? Before this, I was at Crimson Hexagon, which some of you may know is a social web analytics startup. Thanks.
Next, we have Stephanie Miller, who is the Director of Sales and Development for Triad Retail Media. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephanie Miller.
Hi. Do I need to fill this up yet?
Probably.
Okay. Hi, I'm formerly from CBS. I was the Director of Digital Media with CBS Boston for almost 12 years. And in that time, my responsibility was to help transform the organization to embrace digital media, employ it, and to really implement strategies of change. And we implemented education, and we were able to teach not only salespeople to sell, traditional media, but we taught them how to sell consultative solutions across integrated media. And we also got a newsroom to recognize that using social media was a positive thing in the world of change, to where we have almost 60 people down in the newsroom of WBZ now using social media. So it was a great innovation. Now I'm at Triad, which is a shopper marketing digital agency. We're a silent giant, and we help large retail organizations like Walmart and CVS recognize that digital media innovation to their business is a way to create incremental revenue by creating online media programs, and we also consult with them to help them understand the changes within digital media for their business overall. Thank you.
Last but certainly not least, we have Mike Proulx, who leads the digital strategy team at Holliday. Mr. Mike Proulx.
Hello guys. Yeah, so I head up social media and digital for Hill Holliday, work across our clients from everything from Major League Baseball and Dunkin' Donuts to Bank of America and Liberty Mutual. And I need to give Dan Chabelle a huge thanks because your 3 times a day tweets about this event did wonders for my clout score. So thank you so much, Dan.
It's really important getting the cloud score up there. Being anchored to that guy is the best thing you can ever do. So Larry, what does digital media mean to you, and how has it changed and improved your business and job over the last year? Softballs, we're starting off soft.
Well, I think we're in the biggest change of media probably in a couple hundred years, so it's a pretty big deal. I mean, I started a digital agency, one of the early ones called Thunderhouse in 1994, and all we did was go to big companies and they gave us a box of brochures and said, put it online. So that's only 17, 18 years ago. I think we went through the digitization of database and direct marketing, and now we're moving into a deeper social and what I call the 4th wave of computing, which is obviously what everybody's doing, which is mobile, rich media, the cloud, which all that is a bunch of servers that you don't own. As far as marketing goes, it's going to be radically changed because where the rub's going to come in is where paid media fits. And you know, paid media right now this year will do $165 billion in television advertising. And you got to go, half of it's DVR'd. Would you want to be the CMO that goes into the CEO and says, well, half of it must have been seen? And you know, how you start to integrate and how you work this and how you engage. And I think the most important change that's happening in digital media this year, and it will continue, is that we have to understand content strategies. And if you don't understand content strategies and the importance of content, you're not going to go anywhere. And I mean, there's loads more, but that's a start. You know, so.
Perry, how's it affected you as the Chief Digital Officer at Harvard?
So Woody Allen said that 80% of success was just showing up, and I think for Harvard what that has meant is that Harvard needed to show up in a big time. So for a while Harvard was not doing that much online on the internet. It's a pretty well-known educational brand. We're very fortunate to have a lot of applications, a lot of great professors, and a lot of good stuff going on no matter what. But digital and social gave Harvard a tremendous opportunity to say, what happens with our content strategy? What happens if we put all this great stuff up online? So we've been able to work very effectively with the schools and the professors and the students in some instances. So for a comprehensive digital, social, and mobile strategy, be able to surface the content and all the great stuff that's going on around the university, because without that you do end up with what Larry alluded to earlier, brochureware. You end up with the communications office telling one canonical story of Harvard, when of course with the university with 12 degree-granting schools, there are many stories and many individual stories of Harvard. And it's really forced our hand in terms of delivering sort of real, authentic, direct content versus trying to synthesize and deliver one sort of institutional story. So it's given Harvard a lot of voice.
Stephanie?
This is going to be really fun to play with. So what does digital mean to me, right? Digital media. I think digital media means to me something probably a little more personal. I'll go the personal route. It has changed my life, and it has changed all of our lives. I think, and I'm just so you know, full disclosure, I'm a bit of a Larry disciple. So it's this is the industrial revolution of our time, and we're in the midst of it, and we have yet to see what's going to happen. And I think what digital media is doing is allowing us to see all this transformation in a rapid way. So we're going to be able to see the impact on industries, on education, on people's lives, in children, and everything that we do. So digital to me is a very personal experience, not just from a business perspective, but it's in a lifestyle kind of anthropological perspective. How has it affected my business? Well, when I was in publishing at CBS, it affected it greatly. I mean, we talk all the time about traditional media, and I think what it's done is it's made journalism transform itself into telling stories in a very different way, and it's creating conversations of how do you tell stories in an authentic way when journalism was ultimately about facts. And that's revolutionary, right? So it's changing the game and how we convey information, not just from a content strategy of a brand, but how are we communicating with society, and how are we kind of expanding on that. I think from a business perspective of the publishing space, it's transforming it tremendously, because ultimately dollars are shifting in different places, and you need to figure out how you're going to compete in that space to be fiscally responsible when you're a publicly held company. So you have to think in terms of how does digital technologies and how do these digital strategies inside your business impact everything. And so in publishing, they're going through this process now. And I was lucky to be part of it, to see and help contribute to some of those changes, from social media to changing the way journalists kind of look at digital media. And now I'm in shopper marketing, and this is blowing my mind to think about how ultimately every industry is touched right now by digital media. And when you're in your industry, you look at it kind of individualistically. But I would urge all of you to take a step back and think about the impact it has kind of on a macro whole level. So to me, that's what digital media means.
I actually think all media is or is becoming digital media, and here's why. So every year around this time, we get in front of our clients and we do media landscape presentations and look at the upcoming year and what all of our clients should be thinking about. 2 years ago, we were in front of one of our clients and we were doing the traditional media section, but we were talking about billboards and digital out of home. We were talking about radio, but it was more streaming radio. We were talking about television, but the emergence of connected TVs. We were talking about print and magazines and newspapers, but how tablets would soon, this was 2 years ago, be offering them through tablet devices. And so, from Hill Holliday's perspective, we are a digital marketing agency, hands down, and we can no longer be thinking about media as traditional, digital, and social. We have to be thinking about media and marketing as just marketing.
That's really interesting to think that it's just becoming the norm, and it's, like you said, it's not going to be subsect anymore. It's just going to be, now we're talking about media. So next year, look for our media panel. Perry, how have the technological advancements like mobile apps, iPads, changed the game, so to speak, and will that growth continue?
Well, I'm a bit of a futurist, so for the last 10 years, I've been predicting this is the year for mobile, and every year I was wrong, right? Like, so I started in '99, but in 2010, finally, if you do something enough times, right, eventually you're bound to be right. So in 2010, certainly, you know, our logs, I have some numbers here from Harvard, our mobile traffic to our core Harvard properties is up 63,000% from September 2009 to today. That's not the iPad.
63,000?
63,000. I checked that math a whole bunch. But in terms of people, how our access our core content, you know, on Harvard. Yeah, it's astonishing. And the iPad today has secured 25% of that mobile traffic. So, and that's just in what, just over a year and a couple of months since launch. So it's tremendous to see the way we need to start thinking about content shifting, I think Fred Wilson calls it, that the idea that, you know, Harvard's content is expected to be with you where you are, not, I built this website, I built this mobile app, you can come check this out here, but it's got to follow the users in an entirely new way. So from our perspective, you know, it has changed the game. That growth will continue, but we have to think, just as we did in the really early web days, right, about separating content from presentation when you went from those HTML brochureware sites, which I built too, Larry, back in '96, '97, and start thinking far more in terms of, you know, this is the content we need to, you know, deliver. What's the mobile use case for that? A map is a heck of a lot more useful on your mobile device than on your desktop most of the time. So how do we render for that? So we predict the growth will continue, and that we'll think about it more in terms of content shifting than in terms of particular an individual. To your point, a mobile strategy, a social strategy, it's got to be one content strategy.
So just a quick follow-up, what are you going to predict for next year?
There's a bunch of stuff. I mean, I think that we're seeing our video consumption go way, way up. I'm sure you all know that YouTube is the second largest search engine. It's increasingly, because we do have students coming in every year, you know, 17, 18 years old, and we think, you know, that supporting video across platform, and boy, you know, those platforms aren't making it easy for us, right? If any of you were at the Streaming Media East, you can see it's a very complex thing to do well. But I think supporting video in a really important way. The biggest growth/risk, I think, is that we have a big filtering problem with content, right? I don't know if any of you read The Filter Bubble, but there are a lot of interesting books out now talking about what are the challenges around content filters, how do we all manage this information overload, who's managing the filter, who's responsible for the filter, and frankly, what's the role for Harvard as a trusted filter of content as we think about delivering content out to the world?
Larry, you just put out a new book. How have the advances in technology changed being an author, which is, another part of your brand and your business?
Well, first thing I'll say is the cost of computing and devices has come down so much. I want to give credit to a Cambridge person named Professor Nicholas Negroponte for doing that sole-handedly with the one laptop per child. He brought costs down, even though people criticized him, not to $100, but to $180, and that caused all the other manufacturers to complain and follow. So all of a sudden you had instant access, and you had the ability for the tablet finally to take on, which by the way wasn't innovation by Apple, that was just good timing. And so I think that part of technology I've seen change. Mobile, I don't know, I've been around mobiles for a long time too, and invested in mobile, and co-founded a company called Third Screen Media. We sold to AOL. I actually think it's not about mobile, it's still the web that is the innovator, and it's just the access and distribution of mobile that is what's the innovation there. So I think that's going to continue. Rich media video, absolutely. Whether I like it or not, nobody wants to read as much. They want to watch things, and that's okay. And I also agree with what Mike had said earlier. It's not everything's digital. My one daughter's 21 today. She laughed at me a few weeks ago when I said I was getting up from dinner to go online. I said, "Why are you laughing at me?" And she said, "You use the word online, Dad." And I said, "Well, what do you use?" And she said, "We don't, we just are."
That is really scary to think about. Stephanie or Mike, do you want to weigh in on how mobile apps and all that good stuff, as everyone has their iPhone and iPad up here, it seems appropriate.
Yeah, a few of each. So I don't, and Holliday doesn't necessarily see mobile as a place to serve up more ads. We see it as a place for utility. There is something beautifully elegant about Shazam, where you can simply hold it up, listen to a song, and be able to download it on the spot. It's the closest thing to Star Trek's replicator as I think you get. And now more and more, Shazam, with a $25 million investment, is going to be doing the same with television, which is just purely awesomeness. It's the same thing with instant deals from Living Social or Groupon Now, where you, in a very simple way, can just say, "I'm hungry," and see within proximity of you all the places that are having specials where you can get a discount on a great meal. That's what utility is all about, and I think that's the prime example of mobile at its finest.
I think that pretty much kind of encapsulates one of my positions, is that it's really about utility to help you, live your life in a much more flexible way. I think, speaking to the retail shopper industry, it's fascinating to see how QR codes and being able to mobile shop and mobile e-commerce is starting to really impact the way in which people live, to create a convenience in their life, to create an efficiency in their life. So I think, to Mike's point, that it's a utility. Mobile is kind of becoming an emerging utility that will change a lot of things. But yeah, I agree, utility.
So we've touched on it briefly, but it seems that digital media has affected traditional media. So I guess a good way to ask this is kind of, when did the impact happen? How did it happen? And what forms of media, like print, radio, are going to die out? Will they die out? And when will they die out? Stephanie, what do you think?
I think it's a loaded question. I think it's going to depend on who's in the room. I think some people would argue that digital media started impacting traditional, obviously back in the 90s. And some people would say that's not true. It didn't impact us until last year when I recognized it. And so I think will print go away? I think it depends on the type of print. I think print's a broad scope of the word. Do I think newspapers will go away? I think it will take a long time to get rid of them, but I think eventually the organizations it'll be irresponsible for them to continue printing them. And then do I think magazines will go? Eventually they will as well. But I think there's always going to be a contingent for at least another 2 generations that will always want to have something in their hands and will want to have the ability to take a magazine on a plane or a magazine to a beach. So I think it's a transitional kind of medium. When it comes to how is it impacting traditional media in a sense of, I mean, you look at television, you look at social television. I mean, I think social TV is bringing TV back at this point. And then you look at, you know, I think iPads and mobile devices are bringing, you know, reading back to a certain degree. So I think it's about what are these devices also bringing back versus what are we losing out of them. I don't think we're going to stop reading. We're just going to change where we read. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I think that last sentence is key. And to Larry's point earlier, it does come down to the content itself. We're not going to stop consuming content. So some examples, DVD sales are slowing, but we're still consuming movies on Netflix, on Hulu Plus, and other ways, on video on demand. We see bookstores closing, like Borders, but we're still consuming books. E-readers are on the rise. Tablet devices are on the rise. You know, we claim the death of the newspaper, but we're still consuming news content just in other ways. And people for years now have predicted the death of television, but guess what? Americans are watching more television than ever before. So it's about being in the places now that people are consuming the content. We're not going to stop consuming that content. Digital just gives us some additional options to be able to do just that.
Perry, what do you think about how it can affect Harvard just as a school, textbooks, things of that nature?
Less on the textbook side, but we absolutely see digital, you know, pervading the way people want to consume our content. And I think, you know, certainly you see it with the students looking, and I know over at the medical school they're doing some really interesting stuff with the iPad, and they're looking in that direction. But for me, thinking about traditional media versus new media or digital media, I mean, if traditional media is dead, it's sort of like a zombie coming back with a vengeance, right? So there's definitely ways that what we think of as the newspaper that thunks on your stop or going, you know, on your doorstep every morning is going away. But, you know, what do you call a magazine with a QR code? You know, so today, Newsweek.com, I don't know if you guys saw, they just announced today they're shutting it down. But the Daily Beast, News Beast, whatever they're calling it now, is going to be carrying that content. So I think that the traditional media is still alive and well, but it's in a very different format. I think one of the things Harvard definitely sees is who, while the New York Times still, you know, devotes an inordinate amount of digital ink to Harvard, we see a ton of referrals from social media now. So we see maybe, you know, 20x in any given week of articles, you know, refers to Harvard news stories are coming through social channels. That may be through, you know, traditional media on social channels, but that's something we would ignore at our peril.
Larry, do you have something to add?
Well, yeah, I less and less think it's about traditional versus digital. I think it's all digitized, yeah. And I mean, you know, the bigger issue is business models. So, you know, the New York Times can't continue on losing hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, as great as they are. Also, we laid off 50,000 journalists in America in the last 12 months alone, and over half of them got jobs at corporations. So you have to start to think, whoa, what are they doing at corporations? Well, they're writing content that is going to be consumed. So we're going to keep consuming content. The big riddle that I definitely haven't figured out is, again, the quote revenue model around supporting that new content model. Is it going to be corporate driven? Is it going to be, you know, does Harvard support its content driven cost? Where does the subscription come in? Does loyalty come in? Does couponing come in? Where does advertising really fit? Do we really want ads all throughout Facebook? You know, I guess that's what we're going to get, you know, and you know, so I think that's the bigger question. We're always going to consume. We want entertainment, we want fun, we want knowledge, we want, you know, news, we want all these things, but how's it going to be paid for is a big question still, yes.
You said it's a big riddle for you and you don't really have an answer, but can you venture a guess as to how?
Yeah, my guess is you're going to see a lot more, again, less traditional advertising looking. I think everybody asks me what the next big thing is, and they yawn when I say it, but I said it 3 years ago, was digital couponing and digital loyalty. And I think we have only begun. It's not just Groupon. I think that's going to be big. And the localization of content is going to be supported big time by local vendors and, you know, and groups. So I think you're going to see a lot around, again, digital couponing, digital loyalty, subscription I think will come back, believe it or not, we're doing more closed sites at our company right now, or gated communities, and we're doing open ones. I get a lot of pushback from young people. Oh, you talk about the web being open and transparent. And I said, but you don't live forever without a shower curtain and on the, and, on speakerphones all the time. And, so what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more closed, passworded communities, and those are going to be supported by companies, by corporations. So you're going to see a myriad of different ways to underwrite this stuff. And the big thing is going to be organizationally. I think that's another big inhibitor is how we organize around this. I still go into companies that are doing advanced things with social and new media, but they still have the director of advertising, the director of PR, the director of database, and I'm like, oh my God, that could have been 1970. So how do you start to really wake up and look at how to organize around campaigns, around content, around always on, around engagement, not just pushing stuff out, but how do you engage people, because content's the new bait.
Actually, we'll take a flyer on how it's going to be monetized, because maybe like mobile, if I just keep guessing, eventually if I do it for enough years, it'll turn out to be right. I think people are going to stop paying for the content and start paying for the filter, to Larry's point of password protected sites. They're going to start paying for a trusted filter that gives them the people they want within that particular network. And sometimes that network will be location based, like who's relevant to me when I'm stuck in O'Hare on this flight delay, and do I want to socialize my work network or my home network or my alumni network? But I do think increasingly as people suffer terribly from information overload, they're going to be looking for that trusted filter and to understand the parameters of that filter, and that's what they'll pay for.
Do you think that'll tie in, the filter has any ties into like privacy as well, or just all based on there's just too much information and I need to block out some of the online noise?
I think it has ties to privacy in the sense of who your social channel, who your social graph is within that filtered group. I think that's really the huge opportunity. And I think having some sort of brand identification that this is a brand I can trust to. I think the issue with the filtering now, whether it's the Facebook news feed or any one of myriad technologies out there, is that it's not transparent. It's not clear what the filter is. I think as the rules of engagement become clear, people will be more willing to trust them.
Well, and I think that directly speaks to personalization. I mean, I think that's another trend that we're going to see in leaps and bounds and more, is that to your point, to both of your points exactly, is that personalization is that ability to create a filter and control kind of the content that you're consuming, and that brands are as content generators and as organizations that need to figure out how to monetize are going to do it through personalization. They're going to allow you, they're going to build a relationship with you, they want you to connect to their brand, you're going to give them your information, they're going to cookie you, and they're going to use that information to create either better filters or feed you the right deals. So personalization, I think, is connected directly to the filter, and that for me, that's where I see the monetization being is going to be about the future of personalization.
Well, to that point too, I think what's going to happen is that with privacy and personalization, as mobile commerce and digital commerce really becomes full-fledged, that's going to bring such security and and behavioral data and so much beyond just cookies that we're not going to worry as much about the privacy issues and that, and so and that's going to open a huge marketing world, because you're going to just sit there and go, okay, I want deals, I'm only here for a half hour, come on.
Yeah, and jobs. I mean, people
same
haven't really
thing.
mastered the whole personalization thing yet. I think, CVS publicly can say they have like 67 million people in their extra care program. It's the largest consumer database program in the country, and it's amazing to think about the magnitude of that data when you have an opportunity to analyze it. And I think that's where brands are going to go, or big organizations are going to go, is to connecting to those audiences to understand who they are and what they like, to craft more content to their expectation, and also deliver specific specific content to their wants and behaviors. So I think it's also going to generate these jobs of people learning how to do this, and innovations in personalization, privacy, and certain technologies that are going to be a part of that. So I think we'll see a job sector emerge from that specifically.
Do you have anything to add, Mike? You want me to get to your question? So, from your perspective, what impact has social media had on your industry? And also kind of a follow-up, how has it changed your title? And I know we get rebranded and we've talked about it a little bit, but has it affected just what you put on your business card or on your Twitter at all?
So this question gives me a bit of an identity crisis because we represent so many industries, from the marketing, communications, agency industry. Social media has been great because it's provided us a vehicle to share our thought leadership. From everything that Hill Holliday does on Twitter to our blog, it's just a great place to share that and get it out there. A lot of my clients are retail clients, so I kind of look at how social media has affected them. And it's interesting because eMarketer recently did a study to say what's the effect of following a brand on Facebook and actually liking a brand on Facebook, and it was something like 36% of people are more apt to buy a product or service as a result of liking that brand. Compete recently came out with a study that said what's the effect of following a brand on Twitter on purchase intent, and it was like 38% of Twitter followers are saying that they are likely or extremely likely to buy a product because they're following a brand on Twitter. So social media definitely is having an effect on multiple ways. As far as titles are concerned, I kind of a strong opinion like that as well. I think Larry might agree that I look back, I had a title in 1996 that was called Webmaster. And I think everyone did here. Who had a title Webmaster? And that title just has not held up because of lots of reasons. And social media is just getting embedded into every single medium out there. So, while my title today might be Director of Social Media, I don't anticipate it to be that way in 2 years.
Perry or Larry, how's social media impacted your industry?
Well, I think for an organization like Harvard, it's really been a wonderful opportunity, actually. It says Harvard isn't selling anything. You might buy a book by a Harvard author, you might purchase some executive education, but there's not a product we're trying to push to the market using social media. But one of the things we can do is make an institution which to many is inaccessible, right? We're based in Cambridge, it's hard to get in. It's not accessible to everybody to be there, but we can make our content accessible to everyone. So it's a huge and disruptive opportunity for us to say, this is what Harvard is. So maybe your grandson doesn't get in, but when your wife had cancer, you know what? That was NIH research, dollars going to Harvard that, impacted your family, your wife, and your life. And making that connection for people everywhere from Akron, Ohio to Almaty in Russia, is a huge opportunity for Harvard to get its brand and it associated with the content, the scholarship that we produce that does affect the world.
I said two books ago that I thought you should separate the world into paid media and earned media, and that you really needed to focus on the strengths and the weaknesses of both of those and how they work together. What I've been surprised with in the last couple of years is how many people that grew up in paid media think they understand earned media, and I think that's a mistake. I spoke at the second largest Google office in the world, which, does anybody want to guess what the second largest Google office is?
New York.
Detroit. And because of all those keywords that you buy, like sexy, convertible, kind of thing. But I had a big argument with that crowd, and they were all very young, who said they viewed Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter as the same as NBC, CBS, ABC, and that it was just a different way to look at paid media. And I couldn't disagree more. And I think we really have to step back and stop being lazy about the 50 years of being inoculated with paid media rules everything. And that now with engagement and content, paid media has a role, but how does it integrate with the way earned media works through true content strategy? And I think it makes life harder, but it's important for how brands are going to succeed in the future, in my opinion.
Stephanie, how has social media affected you? You can be personal about it too if you prefer.
You want to do that? I think I can speak from my CBS experience on how social media has changed the game when it comes to television or radio, in that it allowed this kind of hidden world of what's happening before the news makes the air, or when breaking news is taking place. I think what social media has done is really given people some real inside perspective on what it is behind the stories. I think that speaks to how well journalists or editors or photographers are willing to engage in that space. And some have really good, they have strengths that they understand it and they realize it's about kind of sharing it. I think social media has transformed journalism because it's allowed different relationships to develop. It's allowed different stories to be told. It's allowed some of the smaller stories that would never have made it through the assignment desk to be found. So I think social media is transforming storytelling. And I think that's a very powerful thing in traditional media, from radio to television to print, etc. And I think social media from a retail shopper marketing perspective, because I'm going to play both sides of the fence on this one, is really about getting people to recognize brands and drive sales, and getting people to build that affinity over a lifetime and connect to the content that they're creating. So I think it's just taking the veil off, and it's really giving people access inside where you never had it before. So it's like, imagine if you got a tour through Santa's workshop. It's that same experience of like, wow, this is cool. And I think the people who do it really well are able to cultivate just amazing things out of it, are able to tell some amazing stories and dynamic experiences, and then they can convert that and make that last a long time. They can make it about brand awareness. They can make money off of it. And I think social media has that ability. And I think there are some people who just don't do it well either. And I think that's what has to be taught better in those spaces, inside those industries.
Is there anything about social media or even digital media that has affected the market life in general negatively? Like things that you've seen that you say, well, I wish that hadn't happened, or wish that guy had invented that thing?
I think I'm gonna take this one because my CBS hat just came back on again. Yeah, I mean, sexting. I think cyberbullying. I think you could call those out immediately and say that those are, I think everybody can say, well, when I was 13 and I didn't have a cell phone, I was bullied too. Well, it's a different experience. And children today have exposure to technology in a way that we've never really been a part of, so it's hard to understand. And I think those are the negatives. I think the negatives are that because it's so new, and because people are still trying to understand how to really do this and master it, or understand their voice or their purpose behind the use of social media, that it becomes a little too, I would say, naked. And pun kind of intended on that one. But it's about the exposure that social media will allow people who don't understand the impact, the implication, or the capacity that the tool can have for good. And it also speaks to just human nature.
I think just like life, you're going to have those evils and stuff. But one thing I'm surprised our intellectuals haven't covered more is the capacity for propaganda through social media, and that it hasn't been used yet completely. But you could see how propaganda has been used in the last century to create so many wars and different things. Not to go off on a tangent, but there's huge potential for that kind of. More of those kinds of issues than I think simple marketing issues, which I think will work themselves out.
I'll echo your point that it poses a huge challenge for high school students, kids who have grown up with us, and sometimes I do long for the shower curtain to be put back for these kids, because you think of the challenges of living in public. There's a researcher named Dana Boyd who publishes a lot of anthropology about these issues, and it's fascinating to think, she talks about kids writing themselves into being, sort of expressing themselves through mediums like Facebook and trying to understand sort of who they are in this very breathtakingly public way. And there are really good things about that, but there are risky things about that. One of the things I think about a lot is, when I went to college, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, there was this idea that you could go to college and reinvent yourself. Everyone called me Perry at home, but now I'll be Christina, and my life will be totally different. And you did leave your elementary school kids, the kids who saw you fall down in gym, like that was over. You were going to be this whole new person who was a French literature scholar, and that's over now, right? Because your social graph goes with you the whole way. So that irritating nickname you had in high school, it's going to follow you right to college. And what does that mean for people's adolescent development and the ability to shed sort of past social graphs and behaviors? I think the jury's still out on what the effect is of that, but I think it's very much worth watching.
Very interesting. So we've talked about digital media trends that we think are on the horizon, and we've touched on some briefly, but if you could each just go down the line and say, in the next 2 years, what's going to be innovative, where are we going to be, anything you just want to touch on in the next couple of years? That
I already said digital couponing, digital loyalty. The other thing I think is going to be huge is micro-segmented social. So this is, what I think is Facebook's Achilles heel, because basically it's a bridge platform. In my opinion, it's just mass media in a different way. So I think what is going to happen, by this I mean, there's a group of podiatrists on Facebook that specializes in the big toe. Really, it's true. But that's what I mean by micro-segmentation. So you're going to see this huge flourish, and I think it's a huge business opportunity of very, very narrow, very micro-segmented, content-driven, social groups or areas to talk about these things and work these things. Then you're going to say, Facebook, it's just for my immediate friends, maybe, and do I really want to communicate with that many people? And it's going to be like life, right? You're going to probably go to 10 places every day, even though they're digital. Maybe the Red Sox, maybe if you have diabetes, you'll go there. Maybe, the fastest growing category right now, according to Forrester, spirituality. People are going to church online, there's that word online. But, so I think micro-segmented content, and then I think aggregation is going to be a big deal. I think things like BlogHer were pioneers in that. So you're seeing self-editing going on right now. I'm amazed at how many people think all bloggers are created equal. Blogging is going to have more impact than it had before, and you're going to have the 2 or 3 top bloggers, and the other 10,000 suck. And so you're going to, much like the newspaper industry edited over the years. So I mean, you're going to see those kinds of things, and again, deep, rich media, cheaper computing, easy to use stuff, and I think we're moving to a period where you're going to see less innovation and more understanding of platforms and innovation within those platforms. So we haven't even talked about gaming, but I just think that's a bizarre conversation. So.
Just real quick to follow up, so do you think in terms of innovation, we've kind of hit a wall and we'll kind of...
No, I think we've hit a wall, and we haven't hit a wall. I think what I mean, but I think we're not going to see huge new platform changes. We're not going to see everybody just leave Facebook, for son or daughter of Facebook. I think you're going to see an evolution into, again, more micro-segmented, more passworded areas. So you're not going to see radical change, like from the mini computer to the PC to the, you're not going to see this giant wave of change. I think we're moving to a cloud, which is not very innovative anyway, but just it's understandable why we're doing that. So I think innovation is going to be within the existing environments and the platforms that we have for a while, because it got so far ahead of most people that we're just catching up to that. And so I don't think you're going to see a radical thing for a number of years. I really believe that, and I'm somebody that believes strongly in innovation and platforms and that. And I think you'd see that if you asked Tim Berners-Lee or Steve Jobs. I think you would see that too.